Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so what's going on here? Let's see. Share, there we are. We are sharing April 12th. Move things around here. One more move. It's interesting, it went up there. Well, we'll live with that. And as anticipated, we are continuing with Yoga Sutras. Chapter 2, Sadhana. Okay, we're starting with a review of verse 3, which lists the 5 Kleshas. So why don't I ask you, see if you can remember what are the 5 Kleshas? Well, these are looked at as afflictions or obstacles to liberation. And the answer, ignorance, avidya, I amness, attraction, aversion, and clinging to life. So that's what needs to be overcome. Verse 10. Their subtle form is to be dissolved into their source and abandoned. What in the world does that mean? See what our commentary says. Referred to in this sutra as these, the Kleshas have a gross and a subtle form. The grosser forms, referred to as either intermittent or activated in Sutra 2.4, are dealt with through understanding and meditation, thereby overcoming the obstacle's outer hold. The subtler forms spoken of here are either dormant or attenuated. They are more difficult to overcome and retain the ability to re-engage should the yogi become careless. So in other words, they're not in our consciousness, they're not influencing our thinking at the moment, but they're still there in the subconscious and have the ability to surface if we're not careful. These subtle forms are weakened by Kriya Yoga and disempowered through superconscious meditation. However, they are only truly eliminated when dissolved into their immediate antecedent origins and ultimately into the root cause, avidya. Pratiprasava, meaning involution or reversal of manifestation, describes the dissolution of the Kleshas. Commentator Vyasa explains it as a process where the Kleshas are traced back to their origin and their manifestations are reversed or dissolved into their source through meditative insight and yogic discipline. This dual process, tracing the kleshas through introspection and dissolving them at their root, embodies the yogic practice of self-awareness and the natural resolution of them. This process culminates in kaivalya, liberation, which is achieved when the conjunction between the purusha, the individual self, and prakriti, manifestation, is dissolved, allowing purusha to abide in its true, independent nature. In our monistic Saiva Siddhanta view, the soul has returned to its source. Quote, even when God realization is attained, the soul body continues to evolve. And this in other worlds until it merges with the primal soul, as a drop of water merges with its source, the ocean. This is the destiny of all souls without exception. And Gurudeva, when the mind has resolved all of its differences through worship, penance, dharana, dhyana, then the inner, which is stillness itself, is known. Then the inner is stronger than the outer. It is then easy to see every other person going through what has to be gone through during his or her particular stage on the path. Opposites are there, but no opposites are seen. Verse 11. Their mental ramifications are overcome through meditation. When the mind is drawn toward worldly thought patterns and activity, driven by one or more of the kleshas, the yogi can disempower such mental fluctuations through meditation. Commentators have elaborated that this can include intentional redirection of the mind to higher thoughts, careful dismantling of the energies by discriminative perception, or surrendering to grace of the deity or the guru in silence. Here, according to Vyasa, Patanjali is referring to the gross manifestation of kleshas and their power to produce spiritually unproductive mental activity, or vrittis. In the previous sutra, he addressed the kleshas in their subtle condition, explaining that they can be removed only by returning to their source, having already been diminished through Kriya Yoga and meditation. And Gurudeva's quote. After you have practiced meditation for some time, your inner vision will become keen and clear. For a while, there may be the feeling of arrival that you have at last conquered life cycles, that you are pure now and free at last. But soon, layer by layer, your past will begin to unfold itself to you as your subconscious mind shows you in vivid pictorial form all the vibratory rates you have put into it in this life. Like a tape recorder begins to play back the patterns and vibrations of previous cause and effect. Some of these memories and actions may not have been complementary. You may try to avoid looking at them. The more you avoid facing them, the more apparent they will become. Verse 12. The kleshas are the root of stored karmas to be experienced in the present or future births. Commentary. The 5 kleshas influence one's actions and intentions, which in turn generate karma. When actions are strongly influenced by the kleshas, they are often unskillful, arising from a place of misunderstanding and ego, leading to future consequences that bind one to further suffering and rebirth. The practice of yoga aims to reduce the influence of kleshas, thereby promoting more skillful actions, reducing the accumulation of negative karma. And a long quote from Gurudeva here. The study of yoga is reserved for the few who have the courage to seek the depths of their being, for the few who can overcome their experiences and their desires in deep meditation. Now, you may meet in your own subconscious, as soon as you sit down to practice meditation, all of the worldly desires latent within you, including several of which perhaps you have no conscious idea. If your meditation is successful, you will be able to throw out the unnecessary experiences or desires that are consuming your mind. When you do this and you travel past the world of desire, you will begin to break free of the wheel of karma, which binds you to the specific reaction which must follow every action. To break free of this wheel of karma, you must have a strong, one-pointed mind. Your only key to help you attain this one-pointedness, this steadfastness, is your devotion to God, your devotion to the realization of the truth. Few people remain steadfast enough under all circumstances and tests that life offers to realize the many causes and effects that are linked together in their lives. The origin of man being spawned from Shiva, the birthless, deathless God, therefore is as a pure, taintless soul. After thus being spawned, the soul goes through a maturing process. This slow growth is in three basic categories: karma exercises, anava clouds, Maya distorts. This classroom of these experiences finally matures an intelligence free enough from the bondage of the classroom of anava, karma, and Maya to realize its own divinity and at one-ment with Shiva as a taintless pure soul. This then is the foundation, after once attained, for final liberation, self-realization to be sought for. Verse 13. So long as the root source exists, there is a ripening into one's kind of birth, which is a translation of jati, lifespan, and experiences. Root source here refers to the Kleshas, which are powerful influence over our karmas. As long as the 5 afflictions are active, there will be karmic consequences, primarily among them what our state and position in life will be, jati, how long we will live, and what life experiences, positive and otherwise, we will encounter. Sage Vyasa reflects that karmas are only active and viable so long as the kleshas remain and become sterile in the absence of the kleshas, like a seed which has been roasted and cannot sprout. Gurudeva, if your meditation is successful, you will be able to throw out the unnecessary experiences or desires that are consuming your mind. When you do this and you travel past the world of desire, you will begin to break free of the wheel of karma, which binds you to the specific reaction which must follow every action. To break free of this wheel of karma, you must have a strong, one-pointed mind. Your only key to help you attain this one-pointedness, this steadfastness, is your devotion to God, your devotion to the realization of the truth. Few people remain steadfast enough under all circumstances and tests that life offers to realize the many causes and effects that are linked together in their lives. It is easy to study the law of karma and to appreciate it philosophically, but to realize it, to apply it to everything that happens to you, to understand the workings of it as the day goes by, requires an ability to which you must awaken. Attachment, desire, craving, fear of loss, these are the self-created ropes that hold man in bondage to his lower states of mind. Verse 14. These bear fruits of pleasure or pain, depending on virtue or vice. This one's easier. These is a reference to the three topics in the last sutra: condition of life, length of life, and life experience. Condition of life, jati here refers to species, social class, etc. These can be full of joy or sorrow, depending on the good or not so good actions of the past, commonly called good and bad karma. Thus, even a short life can be full of pleasure and a long life filled with anguish. A lowly farmer can be happy while the king may be miserable. Vyasa summarizes, the Kleshas provoke karma, and karma, depending on its nature, produces different qualities of births, lifespans, and life experiences. And these in turn produce corresponding pleasure and pain. So we can see the cycle there. Kleshas, attraction and aversion, ego, ignorance, cause us to act in the world that produces the karma, and depending on the wisdom of our action, causes the reaction and a future birth. So the whole source goes back to the Kleshas. And Gurudeva, one of the major keys to understanding the importance of good conduct relates to the release of sick karmas. Performing dharma, acting with correct thought, word, and deed, siphons the results of previous patterns of behavior from the past and causes those seeds to sprout in this life. Like attracts like. These patterns then aid the individual by bestowing clarity of mind and a life in which yoga can be performed and truth sought. In the practice of yoga, the negative seed karmas can actually be burned up without ever having to be lived through. Conversely, adharma, wrong thought, word, and deed, siphons the results of past misdeeds, like attracting like. These seed karmas begin to bear fruit, resulting in a miserable life and state of mind. The individual is immersed in confusion, wrong patterns of thought, and is, of course, in no position to practice yoga, follow dharma, or realize truth. He is simply immersed in samsara. So we want to avoid that. Verse 15. To the discerning ones, all is indeed sorrow, whether from the suffering caused by impermanence, affliction, samskaras, or the turmoil of the gunas activities. Everything, all experiences are sorrow. An ordinary person focuses on the transient enjoyments that come from experience. A wise man, however, looks beyond the moment, knowing that all experience is impermanent and thus cannot bring lasting joy. Well, this somewhat radical statement echoes the philosophy of the Buddhists. The final sutra in the Yoga Sutras talks about the ultimate liberation, where the yogi is liberated from all suffering, leading to a state of true freedom and enduring bliss. In Siddhanta, even suffering has a spiritual purpose, for it brings the soul through necessary, albeit painful, experiences that are required for growth and spiritual evolution. Thus, the Siddhanta embraces all human experience, even suffering, knowing it is Shiva's concealing grace, Tirodhana Shakti, leading to self-realization and liberation. Commentator Bryant notes, this sutra is actually the pivot of this chapter, which in turn is the heart of the entire text. Sutras chapter 2, verses 1 through 14 discuss the causes of kleshas that produce dukkha, suffering. Sutras 2:16 onward focus on the path to remove dukkha as well as the state beyond. The chapter thus echoes the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. No, very interesting, bringing in Buddhism. Well, the basic idea is we're kind of short-sighted or biased in our interpretation of experience. We focus on the immediate pleasure. But the experience of immediate pleasure is not going to be sustained and can even end up being very painful. So no experience of pleasure is sustainable. I remember reading something Gurudeva said about a family won the lottery and they'd always been very short on money. Now they had this abundance of money. So previously they were always worried about not having enough money, suffering. After they got this large sum of money, they started worrying about losing it. So they had a new cause of suffering. So all experiences eventually end up producing some type of suffering. And Gurudeva, there is a divine purpose even in the existence of suffering in the world. Suffering cannot be totally avoided. It is a natural part of human life and the impetus for much spiritual growth for the soul. Knowing this, the wise accept suffering from any source, be it hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, famines, wars, disease, or inexplicable tragedies. Just as the intense fire of the furnace purifies gold, so does suffering purify the soul to resplendence. So also does suffering offer us the important realization that true happiness and freedom cannot be found in the world. So that's the point. True happiness and freedom cannot be found in the world, for earthly joy is inextricably bound to sorrow. That's the point I was making. Eventually, the joy will turn to sorrow. And worldly freedom to bondage. Having learned this, devotees seek a Satguru who teaches them to understand suffering, brings them into the intentional hardships of sadhana and tapas, leading to liberation from the cycles of experience in the realm of duality. Well, that's what we want. We want to have inner experiences. The inner doesn't start as blissful and then turning into sorrow. No, it's however it starts, that's the way it is. Verse 16, suffering that is yet to come is to be avoided. Definitely. Suffering is avoided by acting free from the influences of the Kleshas. Siddhanta echoes this wisdom through its emphasis on Icha, divine will, Kriya, right action, and Jnana, true knowledge. All aimed at transcending anava, the root impurity. Future suffering, anagata dukkha, stems from karmas yet to fructify, driven by the five kleshas. So we know what the five kleshas are. Through the Guru's grace and inner vigilance, we weaken the kleshas that bind us to repeat sorrow. In other words, we stop. After a while, if whatever our source of happiness is, be it a favorite ice cream, maybe that's what we use. When we get sad, we head to the store and buy our favorite ice cream. After a while, we outgrow that. So that's the point. By aligning our life with Dharma and seeking union with Shiva, we proactively dismantle the seeds of pain before they bear fruit. True yoga is thus preventative, not reactive. When we act wrongly, we create negative karma for ourselves and must then live through experiences of suffering to fulfill the law of karma. Such karmas may be painful, but they were generated from our own thoughts and deeds. That is always what we have to remember. God never punishes us, even if we do not believe in him. It is by means of worship of and meditation on God that our self-created sufferings are softened and assuaged. God is the God of the believers within all religions, and of the non-believers too. God does not destroy the wicked and redeem the righteous, but grants the precious gift of liberation to all souls. So that's the Hindu point of view. It's not in the current life, but in the future life, everybody will get liberated. One becomes many, and eventually the many have to become one. Verse 17. Awareness identifying with what it is aware of is the cause to be surmounted. Now that's something we can identify with. Awareness identifying with what it is aware of is the cause to be surmounted. Awareness, the experiencer or seer mistakenly identifies with what is experienced, is a fundamental misapprehension for the yogi to unravel in his meditations. Nothing is more fundamental. For when awareness is separated from all it is aware of, it exists truly and purely, untainted by even the loftiest experience. The I am happy, I am human, I am in love, all dissolves into I am. Samyoga is a term that names this identification or conjunction of awareness and its objects. Drashtri, translated here as awareness, literally the one who sees, is the unchanging and passive witness that observes experiences and mental activities without engaging in them. It is pure awareness, distinct from the mind, chitta, body, and sensory faculties. Drashtri in Sankhya Yoga philosophy simply witnesses the activities of Prakriti, including the fluctuations of the mind, remaining untouched and unaltered by them. And Gurudeva, the mystic lives and is taught to live 2/3 within himself and only 1/3 in the external. In learning how to do this, the mystic is taught to become consciously conscious or aware that he is aware. He learns to separate awareness from that which he is aware of. A person who is not a mystic, living 2/3 in the external mind, says, I am happy, meaning I am aware of a state of mind called happiness and I am in that state, so that is me. Or I am unhappy. Unhappiness is me. The mystic living 2/3 within says to himself, I am flowing through the area of the mind that's always unhappy. He doesn't change. He is a pure state of consciousness. So that shows how Gurudeva's teaching is right there in Patanjali. We need to break the Samyoga, the identification of awareness with consciousness. So that's a good place to stop. A bit dense material. Thank you very much. Om.